Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I've got some really heavy news to share with you today, and honestly, I'm not sure how to even start this, but I think it's important that we talk about it because it's a story that touches on so many levels: family, justice, trauma, and the long-term impact on children. Okay, let's dive in. The story is about Tom Phillips, a man who was on the run for 4 years. He was a fugitive, and during that time, he was living and hiding in the Waikato bush with his 3 children, who's 12, Maverick, 10, and Ember 9. And just last week, he was shot and killed by police after a long period of evasion. Now, the kids were found safe and well by the police, but the circumstances surrounding their discovery are pretty intense. One of them was actually present during the shooting, while the other 2 were found in a remote campsite about 2 kilometers away from where the shooting happened. That's got to be incredibly traumatic for them, right? I mean, they were living in the bush for 4 years, and now this happens. Let's take a step back. Phillips had been missing since December 2021. And his children had been presumed missing since September 2021 when they first went missing. That means the kids were missing for over a year before their father was even reported missing. That's a really long time, and it's got to be devastating for the family and for the police who were searching for them. I can only imagine the anxiety and fear that must have been felt by Catherine, their mother, who's been expressing her sadness over the events, but also hoping for a peaceful return for the children. That must be a really, really hard place to be in. Here's where it gets even more complicated. Police Commissioner Richard Chambers was actually in New Zealand to oversee the situation, which shows just how high profile and serious this case was. And Acting Deputy Commissioner Jill Rogers confirmed that the children would undergo medical examinations and receive support from Oranga Tamariki, which is the child welfare agency in New Zealand. That's a big deal because it shows that the authorities are taking the children's well-being seriously, but I'm sure they're going to need a lot of support. That's where child psychologists like Sarah Chatwin come in. She emphasized the trauma the children likely experienced, including the loss of their father and the disruption of their normal lives. I mean, they were living in hiding for 4 years, and then they're suddenly pulled into this traumatic event. That's got to be really, really hard for them. They've been through a lot, and they're going to need a lot of love, support, and care to recover from this. Here's another angle that's really important to consider. A registered psychologist, David Stebbing, noted that the children's alleged involvement in a burglary suggested that they had been conditioned into the life they were living with Phillips. That's a really heavy statement. It suggests that the children were being used or manipulated in some way, which is a very difficult thing to process. I mean, how do you even begin to understand what that must have been like for them? They were living in hiding with their father, and now they're being told that they might have been involved in a burglary. That's a really, really difficult thing for them to process, especially at such a young age. They're only 9, 10, and 12 years old. That's not old enough to understand the full implications of what they might have been involved in, and it's going to take a lot of time and support for them to come to terms with that. The police did what they had to do to bring Phillips in, but on the other hand, the children were living in hiding for 4 years, and now they're going through this traumatic experience. It's a really difficult balance to strike between justice and the well-being of the children. I mean, the police had a duty to find Phillips, but they also had a duty to protect the children, right? And now the children are going to need a lot of support, and it's going to take a lot of time and resources to help them heal from this. That's going to be a big part of the story moving forward. Despite the trauma, they are alive and they are safe. That's a really important thing to remember because it's easy to focus on the negative aspects of this story and forget that the children are alive and that they're going to be okay. But I think it's also important to recognize that they've been through a lot and they're going to need a lot of support to recover from this. That's where Oranga Tamariki and the other support services come in. They're going to be there for the children and they're going to help them through this difficult time. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything here. Let me just recap the key points. Tom Phillips was a fugitive who was living in hiding with his 3 children for 4 years. He was shot and killed by police, and the children were found safe, but they've been through a lot. The mother, Catherine, is sad but hopeful for a peaceful return. The police have been involved, and they're making sure that the children get the support they need. The psychologists are pointing out the trauma the children have experienced, and there's a suggestion that the children might have been conditioned into a life of crime. That's a really heavy thing to process, and it's going to take a lot of time and support for the children to recover from that. And it's about the impact that this situation has had on them. They've been through a lot, and they're going to need a lot of support. I mean, they've been living in hiding for 4 years, and then they're suddenly pulled into this traumatic event. That's not something that any child should have to go through, and it's really sad to see that this has happened. But I also think that it's important to remember that the police did what they had to do to bring Phillips in, and that they're now making sure that the children are safe and that they're getting the support they need. That's a really important part of this story, and it's something that we should be paying attention to. To wrap this up, I think the key takeaway here is that this is a really complicated situation. It's not just about justice or the police. It's about the children, and it's about the trauma that they've been through. They've been living in hiding for 4 years, and now they're going through this traumatic experience, but they're safe and they're going to get the support they need. That's a really important message to remember, and I think that's something that we should be focusing on as we move forward. The children are going to need a lot of love, support, and care, and it's going to take a lot of time and resources to help them heal from this. But I think that's what's going to happen, and I hope that the children can find peace and healing in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.